Hello, everybody. My name is Dee, and welcome to Books and Quirks. So it's been a couple of weeks, but I thought I'd film today since I have a few minutes. So how is everyone's quarantine going? I know that I'm going a little bit nuts, but at least I have my kitties to keep me company. Um, yeah, we've been in quarantine since March 16th, I think it was. Wasn't that when this all started? But I'm still working, so that is keeps my day hours occupied. And I'm actually more busy now than I was prior to this whole pandemic. So anyway, I have done a little bit of reading, not as much as I usually do, just because of work and being sick and everything. But I will tell you what I have been reading the last couple of weeks and what I hope to continue with over the weekend. All right, so let me get started. So I finished the last two buddy reads that I was a part of, and I'm actually doing a new buddy read right now. So the first one that I finished was Katherine Howard, The Scandalous Queen. I think I mentioned last time that I was reading that with Candace of Beacon Hill Books, and that, we were very much enjoying it. This is the fifth book in the six Tudor Queens series by Alison Weir, who is a renowned historian. I love her writing. I love these books so much. And we buddy read this, buddy read this fifth book together, and it was phenomenal. I now know that why Katherine Howard is always known as the scandalous queen. She was quite scandalous in her day, and she paid the price for it. She was the second of Henry's wives to be, she was the fifth wife, but she was the second in all his wives to be beheaded. So, at the Tower. So, Anne Boleyn was the first, which ironically was her cousin, and Katherine Howard was the second. So it was very enjoyable. The author always writes an author's note at the end where she kind of describes what was fact and what she took liberties from. And the majority of this book was fact, even though it's historical fiction. The majority was fact because, there's so much information on Katherine Howard, whereas the previous book, his fourth wife, which was Anne of Cleves, she took much more liberties in that book because there wasn't a lot of information that like primary resources or even secondary resources that survive about Anne of Cleves. Katherine Howard, there's a lot that she took from. So that was excellent. We are also continuing. Cheryl of Sierra Flames Fan and I are reading the first Empire series. The first book was Age of Myth. This is the first book in the series, Age of Myth. We are now on the fifth book of the series. So we finished Age of Legend like a week and a half ago, and that was excellent. And now we're in the fifth book, Age of Death. So we're continuing on in that series. We're actually finishing up that book, and we will be reading Age of Empire. I forget what the sixth book is, but the sixth book is the final book, I believe, in the series, but that doesn't come out till May 5th. So luckily, we only have to wait like a couple weeks before we can get to that book, but we'll be continuing on with that soon. The other book that I finished that I mentioned I was reading last time is The Dead Zone by Stephen King. This was so good. So this is actually one of his older books. It was written in 1979. I read it with Amber of Amber Eats Books, and we've been reading a lot of Stephen King, Joe Hill books together. And we had a lot of fun with this. We had wanted to, I think I read this maybe when I was a teenager, when I started to discover Stephen King. But I didn't remember anything about it, and we had talked about perhaps rereading some of his older books. that we may have read when we were younger. But yeah, so I read this somewhere in the 90s, probably in the 1990s. But yeah, so this is one of his like earlier books, his 70s novels. And it is about a man who goes into a coma. There's an accident and he goes into a coma. Don't worry, no spoilers. This is on the back of the book, the blurb. And he goes into a coma. And when he wakes up 4.5 years later, and he discovers that not only has his life changed, a lot can happen in 4.5 years or almost 5 years, but also he has a strange ability where he's able to touch someone and immediately know like everything about them. So it's really interesting. It has a lot of paranormal elements. This is not it's not your feel good, happy ending type book. Just know that going in. But it is excellent. I love Stephen King. I have so much respect for him and his writing. I will forever be a fan. I know a lot of people, you either love him or hate him, and the people that hate him really, really bear down on him, unfairly, in my opinion, I think. But, to each his own. But I personally love Stephen King. If you like, I wouldn't necessarily call this horror. I think Stephen King is unfairly also portrayed as a horror novelist. And although he has written a lot of horror novels like Carrie and The Shining and things like that, he also writes a lot of books that are not horror. And I know I've said this before on my channel, but I will ever say this. This is not horror. This is more paranormal. He also writes, more mysteries and things like that. But this book is more like a paranormal mystery slash thriller a little bit. And I don't mean thriller in a scary way. I just mean that, thriller in a suspenseful way. It gets your heart racing, or at least it got my heart racing. So I finished this book. The book that I want to hopefully get started this week, and I've been putting it off just because of other things, but I've been wanting to get to this for a while, is Carnegie's Maid by Marie Benedict. This actually is based on a true story. It's about a serving maid to Andrew Carnegie. It's all about, serving that household. And it says Carnegie's Maid is a tale of the brilliant woman who may have inspired Andrew Carnegie's transformation from ruthless industrialist to the world's first true philanthropist. That was the blurb that really got me wanting to read this book, so hopefully it's good. So I'm also still in the middle of the book that I started in March. It's The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Glass. So this is a mystery book that I was supposed to read in March, but then it got carried over and now it's been pushed aside for other things. But I really hope to finish it this week. And this book is a mystery that revolves around all of the descendants of all of the famous horror characters. Like there's Justine Moreau, who is the daughter of Dr. Moreau. There is Mary Jekyll, who is the daughter of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And there is Denise Hyde, who is the daughter of the Hyde part of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And there is, Frankenstein's, Dr. Frankenstein's daughter. And, all of these famous horror characters that we know it's their children solving a mystery of murders in the area. And it's really interesting. I absolutely love it. The writing style is different than what I have. It's new. It's written in sort of a kind of a storytelling capacity rather than being in the middle of it. It's hard to explain, but I'll explain it more once I get through it because I'm not that far into it. And but from what I've read so far, I'm enjoying it, and I'll have to see what the writing style is like more once I get more accustomed to it. The other book that I'm listening to actually as an audiobook is In the Wake of the Plague, The Black Death I know, right? It's such a cliche to listen to that type of book during this whole pandemic. But there you go. I picked it up and I just haven't been able to put it down. And it's by Norman F. Cantor. That's the author. So it's In the Wake of the Plague. And it's just all about, the history revolving the Black Death that occurred in the Middle Ages. I think the first time the Black Death came, it was the Black Plague. It was like 1100 or something, around 1100. And then it occurred more throughout the following centuries. There were even little spurts of it during Henry VIII's time. So yeah, so the Black Death is it's the reason I picked it also is it's not a very long audiobook. It's only about 7 hours in total. So I'm more than halfway through now, and I am really enjoying it. It's quite fascinating history, and I know it's weird because we're going through this whole pandemic now, and I'm reading about another pandemic that occurred in history, but there you go. That's what I've been doing. So anyway, that's what I have been reading. That's what I will be reading. Again, I hope that you're all staying safe and healthy, and yeah, and we'll all get through this together. And I'll see you all very, very soon. Bye.